I hope people had a good week and weekend. I seen some really good stuff. I did go to that symposium this weekend, and things were a lot less. The symposium itself was great. My own stuff that was going on with my own stuff uh, precluded sticking to the plans that I had made, so I wasn't able to get everything um, graded until yesterday. I did do that. We have a um, PowerPoint to watch. And then I wanted to go over the tiles. I have several examples that I want to show you from the class. And then also we have one person turning in the ready-made, the conceptual thing. Now I know that stuff is rather stacked as the due dates, but I would really appreciate from you guys feedback as to how far we should push that stuff back. Um, what I would like is I want everybody to get their biomorphic carving finished to the point where they can do the paper mache on that. And I do have a video about that. There are also videos online that you can watch on that. I want to talk a little bit about that today, but if you don't have your biomorphic foam carving graded, I'd rather you fix what you need to. And I'm sorry, they are all graded. The ones that I have seen are all graded. If you need to make any changes, I want you to make those changes and then document it. You know, take a photo of that and submit the update. And then after you do that, go ahead and do the paper mache. And I am hoping that everybody can get the paper mache done on Sunday. Not this Sunday, but next Sunday. And let me see. Let's see. Okay, the problem that I see right now is that I do not have the correct date on this. I'm going to move the paper mache due date back 1 week because I want everybody to get that stuff done. And what I would really like to see from you guys is if you have reworked that and resubmitted it and I did not grade it immediately, email me and let me know because I will take care of that just as soon as I possibly can. Okay, and I'm just now changing the date on the paper mache. Okay, so that should be updated right now. And let's see. Okay. And we will talk about more about the paper mache as well. I have some and I'm going to go over that as well right now. But I want you guys um, do not do the paper mache until after I have graded your foam carving so that we can make sure that that is where it needs to be. Okay, I'm sorry. What I'm doing right now is just making sure that all those dates are changed so that it matches what I'm saying right now. If you folks do notice that I have not changed the due dates on things and we talk about the change, please email me so I can do that. There's a couple of you that have been doing that, and I really appreciate that. That helps me to stay on track. Sometimes um, I will tell you I'm going to change the due date, and I haven't. And most of the time that happens because I say it and I think I've done it, and I got sidetracked to do something else. And we'll blame the ADHD and being on the spectrum. Okay. All right, and I'm changing the last date. There we go. Okay. All right. That is all changed now. So what I'm wondering, I think I would like to watch with you the most recent PowerPoint. And after we watch that most recent PowerPoint, then I want to talk about the paper mache really briefly. And then we're going to spend time on looking at the color tiles and texture tiles, talk about that. And then after all that, I'm going to introduce you to the conceptual art stuff. And again, I, I realize that the due dates are a little bit skewed, so please let me know um, after you watch this video. Let me know uh, if I've changed those dates or not, and if I haven't, I'll go back and change them for sure. And I hope you guys are remembering to watch these videos because the questions that I get from people about assignments, and this isn't just this section, it's in all the classes that I teach overall. Most of the questions that I get about from people who are confused about the assignments, it's because they either didn't show up for class if we're meeting in person, or they don't watch the weekly recordings when it's an online class. So it's really a benefit to you to watch the online recorded classes, which is why it's a big part of the grade. If you don't watch them all, um, you can lose. If you don't watch any of them, you'll lose a full letter grade or more. So it is pretty important. Okay, I'm going to tee up the PowerPoint. Okay, here we go. So we are going to watch a PowerPoint that was turned in this week. If you haven't done that yet, please submit it as soon as you possibly can. And remember, last week we looked at some really good examples about peer and self critique videos, 3 to 5 minutes long. Those turned out really, really, really good. So we're going to go ahead and watch this. Here we go. Okay.
And today I'm going to be talking about the artist Yayoi Kusama, and specifically what makes her work so engaging and unique. Kusama is known for creating immersive installations that surround the viewer, especially her infinity mirror rooms. Instead of just looking at art, you become a part of it. Much of her work focuses on repetition, pattern, and the idea of infinity, which creates a very powerful experience. For background, Yayoi Kusama was born in Japan in 1929, and from a very early age, she experienced vivid hallucinations that strongly influenced her artistic vision. After studying traditional Japanese painting, she moved to New York in the late 1950s to pursue more creative freedom and became a part of the avant-garde art scene. During this time, she began developing the experimental style she's now known for, especially her use of repetition and immersive environments. Even though she faced both personal and financial struggles, she continued to create art, and her work eventually gained international recognition. What makes Kusama especially interesting is how personal her work is. Like I said, from a very young age, she experienced these hallucinations, and she would see patterns, dots, and forms spread across everything around her. Instead of trying to ignore these experiences, she turned them into art. Repetition became a way for her to cope and gain control over what she was seeing. This is where a lot of her signature style comes from, especially the polka dots and the repeated forms. Her work shows us how she experiences the world. Now, some of her most famous works are her infinity mirror room installations. These installations, made with mirrors, lights, and repeated objects that reflect endlessly in all directions. When you step inside, it feels like the space goes on forever, even though the room itself is actually very small. What's really important is that the viewer becomes a part of the artwork. Your reflection is repeated over and over. You are no longer separate from the art piece, you have become one with it. The idea of infinity in her work is not just about space, but it's also about identity. Kusama talks about something that she calls self obliteration, which is the idea that the individual self can dissolve into something larger and greater. In the infinity mirror rooms, you lose a clear sense of where you end and the space begins. This creates a feeling of being connected to something infinite, almost like the universe. It can be calming, but also a little disorienting, which also reflects her own experiences. Another very important part of Kusama's work is her use of pumpkins. She started drawing pumpkins as a child because she found them comforting during her hallucinations. Over time, pumpkins became one of her most recognizable symbols. She uses them in sculptures, paintings, and installations. Even though they look playful and simple, they still connect to her larger themes of repetition and pattern. The dots covering these pumpkins ties them back to her overall style as well. Now, the obliteration room is a very interactive and a very interesting piece. It starts as a completely white room filled with completely white furniture and objects. Then, when visitors come in, they're invited to place colorful dots and stickers all over the walls, all over the furniture, and everything. Over time, the room becomes completely covered in these stickers and these colors and this pattern. And what's important here is that the audience becomes a part of the creative process. Instead of just observing the installations, they're actively transforming the installation and the space around them. This also connects to our idea of self obliteration, where individual actions combine into something larger, shared, and greater. Now, in her accumulation series, Kusama takes everyday objects like chairs or furniture and covers them in repeated organic forms. These forms often look soft, phallic, and appear to be growing out of the surface of the furniture, which makes the objects feel strange, alien, and unfamiliar. This work is more intense and personal to Kusama as it relates to her fears and discomforts in childhood trauma, especially around the human body and sexuality. By repeating these forms over and over, she's transforming this fear into something she can control and express both artistically and therapeutically. Now, why does her work matter? What I find most interesting about Kusama's work is how it combines something very personal with something universal. Even though her art comes from her own experiences, it creates environments that anyone can step into and emotionally feel. Her work stands out because it's not just something you look at, it's something you experience physically and emotionally. I think that's what makes her work so powerful. It makes people think about space, identity, and their place in the world in a way that feels immersive. And this is my works cited. Thank you.
I think that that one is really well done. Um, and there's a couple reasons why I really enjoyed that. One is that uh, Devin is really engaged with what's going on. But I don't know if you notice it though. Each time he showed a style that Yayoi was doing, he would describe it and then talk about how Yayoi made it, and then talk about some of the things that it could mean and how it applied to people. I thought that was really well designed. And it always makes me happy too, and people remember that the last slide has all their citations on it, and they're in alphabetical order, and every single one has the accessed on date. If that's something, I just got a couple things this last week where people resubmitted the video and then included the extra document that I asked for that had all that information as well. And it that kind of stuff makes me happy. I do have a bit of OCD, so thank you very much for that. Now, I am I I wonder, nobody is here live, and I'm wondering, let's go ahead and look at the color and texture tiles that have been submitted. That because you guys are working on that right now, and the ones that I've seen have been really good. I wanted to show this off. There's a couple things that I need to clarify for the assignment, which I haven't had to clarify uh, before. Um, in the last 20 plus years I've been teaching. So that's something that I think would be that is important that we talk about. Let's see. So I'm going to share an image. Here we go. And we're just going to go through and look at each of these. I'm trying really hard to make sure that nobody knows who submits these, and I'm trying to mix up class to class so that you guys, it's going to be impossible to find out who does this. But this I thought was really interesting. This person really does a good job with their craft, but there's a couple things which I do need some clarification on. One is we look at the texture. The textures are really interesting, but you'll notice that two of them are the same. And this is the first time in the last 23 years that somebody has turned in this texture thing with textures being identical. Everybody's been, all six of them have always been unique, and that's the intent of the assignment, and that's what we talked about on the video. So if you don't watch the video, this is going to be problematic. I did go back and change that in the assignment as soon as I saw this, so that um, everybody that is still working on it, it's even more clear that each of the uh, texture sides needs to be unique. One thing that we did already talk about that is clarified in the assignment is that these color pieces need to be collages, and they need to be collages where each of them have at least 9 pieces. And it looks like that is the case on all this, except for right here. It looks like this only has 5 pieces. Um, and it also looks to me like this is actually drawn with marker directly on the cardboard, and these are supposed to be collages. And if I'm mistaken about that and that these are collages, then whoever this person is just needs to reach out and talk to me. Some of the things that I really like is that it looks like this took a lot of design and thought. And I love it when you don't have to, but it is nice to see when people apply the texture and then spray paint it all one color. Because like Louise Neville, it looks like, I mean, it forces the texture to come out forward when it's all the same color. And I think that that's really interesting. This texture is really interesting when it fits right exactly with what we with Yayoi Kusama. And this one is really interesting too. My concern is that these two appear to be identical. Now, if you are doing different textures and they just happen to look identical, then that's something that you can tell me about. Um, but and even though this one, I do think that the colors are really interesting, the dramatic designs, and they're fascinating. This doesn't appear to be a collage, and that maybe that's something that I could be corrected on. That this person could tell me, yes, it is a collage, but this only has 5 pieces instead of 9. So that would be a concern. And we look at this, it looks like this is the second set from that same artist. These two appear to be the same. This top panel appears to be the same as um, the side panel on that other one. So that becomes problematic. And one of the reasons is um, this is supposed to be an examination of texture, and you need to be exploring texture. We talked about them. Each of the panels do need to be different, and it does concern me that these two are very similar. Um, it's the same texture. So that's something that does concern me. On this, it appears that this might actually be a collage right here. This looks like it's painted directly onto the cardboard. And this, there's only 3 areas, different areas on this one. And that becomes problematic because, like as I said, the collage needs to be 9 pieces. This is really dramatic. These are really interesting. I like it when people take the same kind of design and do different things with it. That's really fascinating. This is really interesting. I bet it was really a pain in the butt to glue that string on. That's really fascinating. And this is interesting. It looks like pipe cleaners or something like that glued on. These are looks like the skewers. And right here, the collages, um, it does follow all the rules and it fits everything because it does look like there's at least 9 pieces in each of those. Um, if you guys are all art students, art designers, professional artists. Um, this is interesting, but I know that you guys can make stuff that is a lot more subtle. And this does fulfill the requirements. I just hope that you guys are do stuff that it really engages you and challenges you. This one, two, three, four, only four pieces. These two qualify, and I think it's really interesting. They're addressing different ways of showing these color sets. I think that that's fascinating. These two are really interesting. This one starts becoming a little bit problematic to me because, like we talked last week, we don't want to have just something that you stick on. I mentioned that with just putting the foil of the sandpaper on, and it looks like this is not a manufactured texture at all. It looks like they cut a plastic grill off of something and then put it on. And if I'm wrong, please let me know. Whoever made this, please tell me. Because each of these tiles should take about 45 minutes to do. And if it takes a lot less than that, a lot of the times that you're missing the point of one of the big points of the assignment. But these two are really interesting to me, and I think that these two fulfill the requirement. This if you're going to do something like this, again, a collage needs to have 9 pieces in it or more, and that could be satisfied by getting pieces that are each of these shades of orange and building that form up by little pieces of orange next to each other, and then doing the next layer of a lighter orange and then pieces of yellow as well. So this is interesting because it looks like they kind of combined the texture, and this fulfills a requirement for a 9 piece of collage. This does too. Looks like a very monochromatic one, and this is very much um, well, it looks like it's complementary on a base of blue. So I think that's kind of interesting. This looks like it's just a couple pieces, and maybe it's not in focus, and that's why. These textures I think are really interesting. The twigs also, and then this looks like crumpled up paper and stuff like that, and stones. I think that's kind of interesting. And this with the curled ribbons, that's really an interesting texture. And I like this kind of thing where they're kind of making a design almost with the different textural elements, and then peeling up cardboard and rolling it into tubes. That's really fascinating. And this, you can see the different collage pieces. That's really interesting too. And this is that same kind of color scheme, the complementary with blue, which wasn't one of the color schemes, but they're being consistent. This is kind of interesting to me. I don't know. This doesn't feel like it's complementary necessarily. Oh no, yes, it is complementary. Okay, so I wonder what this one is. If it's tetradic or triadic, that'll be interesting to see what they wrote about it. These I'm a little bit it looks like to me that these are collages, and each of them have at least 9 pieces, and the color spread is really interesting how they've done that. And I really like the thought put into these textural tiles. This is really fascinating shapes being built up where they become sculptural. And then I don't know if this is paper or cloth. That's really fascinating. I really like this too. And this is really interesting. The collages remind me a little bit of Wassily Kandinsky. That's fascinating, and I love that textural components being built up right here. That's really fascinating to me. So I think that this one, this whoever did this, I think did a really solid job. And all these, if you want to go back and redo stuff, I am going to be grading these, but when you rework it, because you see, we talk about it, and several of you did this with the foam carving. When we talk about it and you see your work and you see the things that I say about it, go back and redo it and resubmit. And if I don't regrade it right away, email me and let me know, and I'll take care of it just as soon as I possibly can. But it looks like to me that most of you are really understanding what's going on with the tiles. I would say make sure if you're still working on yours, make sure you spend 45 minutes for each one. Make sure that each one is unique, and make sure that you stick to your color schemes and that your collages are actual collages and they are made with at least 9 pieces of material. Excuse me, for each collage. And if you're going to be doing something like a color scheme that is complementary, it's not going to hurt to do different shades of red and different shades of green. I mean, that will be actually make it a lot more interesting to look at as a collage. Okay, let's look at the paper mache. Now, this is something as we talk about the paper mache, it is really important that you have your carving done before you apply the paper mache. I have had people that will apply paper mache without getting the carving finished, and that becomes problematic. And I was holding off grading. To be honest, I wanted people to have plenty of chance to change the things that we talked about, and only a couple people did. I did grade everything, and I said the same thing as I did in the video, in the class video. So look at that, make the changes that you need to, and most of the time it is just sanding a little bit here and there to get rid of the tool marks. And one person said that they were really, it's actually more than one person said they were really getting frustrated because it seemed like there were bubbles or something in the foam and it kept pulling chunks out. That's fine, but what we want, and just let me know if I grade you down for that, tell me you're having problems. But the thing that we need to really concentrate is making sure that we don't have tool marks. And we talked about that last week in the video quite a bit. We don't want to get rid of the tool marks, and we want to make sure that we have a consistent change from one area to another so it all flows together and it feels very organic. We don't want to have sharp edges, and we don't want to have abrupt changes. Now, I really like this sculpture, and yes, it is carved out of the same size of foam block that you have. And this person, they sanded it down so they didn't have any tool marks. The tool marks are the thing that you're going to see through the paper. And then what I want you to see is for this assignment, what you'll need to do is cover it with paper mache, let it dry, sand where you need to, and cover it with a layer of paper mache again. Each layer may take you only an hour or two, and sanding it after it dries may take a little while. But again, you need to do 2 layers, and you can kind of see where this person sanded it, applied the paper mache, and then sanded it again, like right through here, right through here, right through here. Because when you get all done, we want it to be smooth. You're using the paper mache to fill up those holes that the sandpaper pulled out, and we just want this to get as smooth as we can with the sandpaper you have and with the paper mache. Again, 2 layers of paper mache, and you're going to sand after the first layer and then sand again when you're done. Oh, and then this gourmet paper mache, these are good to go to because it shows how this person used paper mache and the work that they're doing. But there's a couple of points that I want to make. And I do have my video that I've shown you. It looks like I don't have a link to it in this. So I'm going to go back and get a link to it. And the video I'm talking about is if you go to Module 4, Carve Biomorphic Abstraction, and then go to the assignment, click on that. This is the demonstration that I give right here, this link right here. And that is the one I'm talking about. And I'm going to copy that link. And I will give you the marker as well for when the paper mache demonstration starts. So we're going to go back. Okay, we're going to go to this. I'm going to edit it. And then okay. And I'm ready here. Okay, this is about where the paper mache starts, right around there. And then this is the link right here. And I'm going to also copy this. So that if this link doesn't work, you also have this link. And I'm going to write just the same link. But this is something if whatever for whatever reason, the YouTube video link right here doesn't take you to the right spot, then you can type this in. All right, that way you have two links, and I'm going to update that right now. Now I'm going to show this to you, and I have the sound off, but I'm going to talk a little bit about it as we do it. Now you make the paper mache by everybody has a container that has glue in it, and has flour in it. And what you're going to do is use the disposable Tupperware container that you have, put the glue in it. Okay, let's see. Oh, the demo started earlier than I thought. Okay, let's get it to the right spot, and then I'll change that. I'll edit that. Okay, so sorry about that. I'm going to edit it right now. And it looks like it starts at about 54. Okay. Okay. And I'm showing you how to mix this. What we're going to do is you're going to get your Tupperware container out. You're going to put in, and I talk about the paper a little bit, but you're going to get your Tupperware container out. You're going to pour into it the flour and the glue and about the same amount of water. This does not have to be precise. We're not worrying about precision. And if you want, you can dump everything in as long as your container is big enough that it fits everything. But you're going to have about the same amount of water as you do the glue. And on this, I just mixed about half and half of the materials that I've got, and that's fine. You can mix about half, it's just fine. So the glue and water are going to be about the same amounts, and then you're going to put in about half of the flour that you've received as well into this, mix it. And I did not wear gloves when I was doing this. Gloves are a good idea, especially if you have little bits of hair on the back of your fingers, the back of your hand. If you wear gloves, you can mix this up, and then when it dries, it's not going to be a problem. And I do say it in the module, I do say it in the video, and I will say it again. Do not pour this down the drain, ever. When you dispose of it, the easiest way to dispose of it is to just, if you want to reuse the container, dump it into something that you're going to throw away and get rid of it that way. Do not pour it down the sink. Don't flush it in the toilet. Don't do any of that. It will destroy the pipes. Don't do it. So I would recommend using all of the paper mache stuff you can as much as possible. If you have some left over after you do the first coating, then put the lid on, make sure it's airtight, and it should be okay. But as I mix this, the reason why I'm talking about gloves is as you mix this, you want to knead it and finger it with your fingers as much as you can, get all the lumps out. Let it sit for a half an hour, go back and do it again. Every time you let it sit, put the lid on so it doesn't dry out. But you want to keep mixing that and mixing that 2 or 3 times to get as many of the bubbles out as possible. And then when you start using it, it will also get more, not bubbles, I'm sorry, lumps. As you start using it with the paper, it will start getting more of the lumps out as well. And then you're going to want to get newspaper. Newspaper works really good with this, or paper towels work okay, but you're going to have to do more sanding because it'll give you a lumpy texture. So I think newspapers are the best. And you can find those. There used to be places on campus where they just had free newspapers that you could, grab a couple because you don't need more than one or two. Um, on campus, there's going to be a couple places like that. If you can go to Smith's parking lot, I think they have newspaper recycling there, and you can grab some out, uh, or just look around and see where on campus you can find it. The free newspapers. And like I said, you only need a couple. And what you're going to do is take the newspaper, tear it into strips, and if you tear it down the edge of the page, from top to bottom of the page, that's usually the grain of the paper. And that's going to give you long and consistent strips. When you do this, okay, I'm going to pause it right here. You're going to need different size and shapes of strips for different areas that you're applying the paper mache to. When you do areas like this, where you're going to want to do paper mache around the cross section, you're going to want to get a paper strip that is long enough it will overlap itself. And I talk about all this in the video again. You want to have it overlap itself because then it will hold itself in place. When you're applying this to the foam itself, the foam the paper doesn't stick to the foam really well. And this is one of the reasons why you're going to be doing 2 layers of paper mache. You cut it into strips long enough to wrap around and touch its own self again, because then the glue will stick to the end. And you notice when I'm doing this, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm wrapping the strip around and making sure that it's attaching to itself. And as I'm going, I'm smoothing out the bubbles, I'm smoothing out the wrinkles as I go through and attach the paper on it. And then after you let this dry, the second layer that you do, the paper mache will stick to the previous layer, so you don't have to worry about it as much. And one of the things you see on this, I do have spots like right there where, see, you see right here, these are not tool marks. This is the sandpaper was acting obnoxious and just pulled some of the foam out. So that's going to be covered. That's going to be taken care of. I don't want you to worry about that. It's the tool marks that we're really worried about. And you can see this is not perfectly smooth, but I don't have any tool marks visible. And that's one of the big things. So again, when you are applying the paper mache, and I do have a couple short videos that show you how to also how to do this. You're going to tear your strips of newspaper long enough so it can wrap around and then attach to itself. You're going to put it through the paper mache mixture and you're going to apply it. And then you saw me with my fingers kind of working the bubbles out and stuff like that. When you are working, it is really important not to do this over carpet. I would say get a garbage bag, lay the garbage bag on your work surface, then work on that. Make sure that you have your lid ready so that when you're done, you can put the lid on and you don't have to make an entirely new batch because the other batch dries out completely. It is going to settle. It is going to do little things. It's going to look funky. It's going to curdle. Before you start doing the paper mache on the second batch, you're just going to run your fingers through it and squish the lumps out. Do the best you can. And we have enough. The paper mache compound that everybody has should be enough to cover your whole thing twice. If it's not, if you need to make your own, the recipe is 1 part glue to 1 part water, and then about a similar ratio of flour, just like what you've been given. So it's really hard to screw up. It doesn't have to be exact. So I'm hoping that helps. And again, look at this on the introduction of paper mache. Dan Reeder, the gourmet paper mache guy, he talks quite a bit about paper mache. And this is the link to that demo. And I put in the timestamp there. Do not pour the leftover stuff down the drain. And we go all the way down to this. This shows another couple links. I want you to just go through a site and see what he does with paper mache. And then this YouTube link talks about it quite a bit. And if you are confused at all, go to YouTube and ask what's a good paper mache recipe. It doesn't have to be exact. The mixture that we've given you in the kit will be more than enough to do this. I do prefer, instead of Elmer's glue, I like the Elmer's wood glue because it does make a lot sturdier paper mache if you need to replace the glue. If you want to use different brands of glue, if you want to mix stuff up, that's fine, whatever you want to do. The thing you need to stick to is not the recipe, because you can use whatever recipe is going to work. The thing that you need to stick to is you need to cover it once, your foam piece once, sand it down so it's smooth, cover it a second time, and then sand it so it's smooth. And then these are the photos that you're going to submit when you're done with this assignment. If you have any questions at all, let me know, and we will talk more about it again next week. So I hope that helps quite a bit. Now, the last thing I want to, so we've talked about texture tiles, we talked about these other things. One thing I want to talk about now is we're going to go back and talk about the conceptual or contemporary processes module. Now, the reason why I'm not spending a lot of time explaining the paper mache thing is that hopefully you guys have all done paper mache, but it's also designed specifically to only take a short while. And on the contemporary processes module, this one, okay, it says it's due next weekend. I don't want you guys to worry about that too much. I want you guys to do this well and do it right. So we do have an example to show today that kind of starts that, but I want to talk through the contemporary processes module with you tonight and just kind of talk more about it so you guys have a better idea of what's going on. Now, if you remember, last week everybody was supposed to watch Plato's Allegory of the Cave. The reason why that's important is because it really provides, I don't think it is an unassailable allegory about how to think, how we relate to what we perceive as reality. I don't think that that's true. I think it's a pretty good idea, but the reason why I want you to look at that is specifically because it talks about different ways to think. And it is, Plato used the allegory as a way of kind of sharing, well, what's the difference between people that just live their life without thinking too hard about it and people that really spend a lot of time contemplating. And I do think it's a little self-aggrandizing. It's setting Plato up as, he's describing himself or implying that he's enlightened. I don't know if that was entirely intended that way, but I do like the fact that it does give you the idea that there is this element of truth that is behind the truth that everybody experiences. And contemporary processes, we are talking about sculpting with a different medium. Every module that we've taken or that we've worked on so far, up to the first 5 modules, have always been using materials and using tools to generate a physical object. And that physical object becomes the final sculpture. In conceptualism, what we are talking about is something a bit different because we are using the physical objects that we make as the tools, and the thing that we're actually sculpting is inside of the head of the person who's viewing or taking the time to view what we've created. This link, I think, is really a good link, and we're going to go to that and look at it right now. This link talks about different kinds of art, and we scroll down here to conceptualism. I'm sorry, I thought it was going to get it right to that. But the conceptual art that we're looking at, I, I can't watch this video. I want you guys to watch it. And I'm going to change that link so it gets right to conceptual art, which I thought it did. And it looks like they just kind of changed that link on the website. And it looks like, yeah, it looks like they replaced Joseph Kossuth's 1 and 3 chairs with this other link. So I'm going to just restore that link. All right. Yeah, this is good. Okay. And then we're going to talk about his. So I'm going to change this link in the actual module so it's linking to the correct thing. And so I'm glad we looked at that because that does kind of frustrate me a little bit. Okay, there. So I've changed it in the module. And if anybody has a hard time, if the link's not working, let me know and we'll fix it. But I want to walk through this particular work with you and use it as an example of talking about conceptualism. Now, Joseph Kossuth is pretty amazing. Nobody else was doing what he started really working with. No, I'm not going to say that. Other people did. Other people addressed it, but it seemed before Joseph Kossuth, it seemed like most artists that were addressing these kinds of things were still providing a product. Like Lee Krasner and uh, was an abstract expressionist. And what she was really exploring was ways to, well, there were visual representations of meditation. And her husband was the spatter painting guy. I can't remember his name right now. That's so embarrassing. But they were both exploring meditation, and their paintings were designed to put people in, among other things, they were designed to help people find a meditative state. And and you can really see that too with her contemporaries, the color field painters, Rauschenberg and people like that. Uh, but still, the painting itself was an object, and you didn't have to see it that way. You didn't have to dress it that way or anything like that. It was still its own thing. It's still a painting. And Joseph Kossuth, one of the things he thought was, why don't I just address this idea, making people think about stuff head on? And so when we look at this image, we can see we have a folding chair that Joseph did not make himself. It is just a folding chair. And one of the stipulations, if you wanted to have this exhibit in your museum or gallery, you had to use one of your folding wooden chairs that were already there. And then we have an image of a chair, a black and white photo. And the stipulation was that it had to be a black and white photo of the same chair blown up so that the dimensions of the chair in the photo were the same as the dimensions of the chair being shown or that was photographed. And you can tell here's a little mark in the wood here, mark at the wood there. It is the same chair. But this is a documentation photo. It's a black and white photo of the same chair blown up so the scale is the same. And then the other stipulation for this exhibit was that you had to have a large print definition of the chair. And I believe he always used Webster's dictionary. I'm not entirely sure about that. But for Joseph Kosuth, he gave the directions. People had to follow the directions. That was an important thing. And the title of this is One in Three Chairs. Why is it called that? We have one chair here, an image of a chair, and a definition of a chair. So that's the three chairs, but they are all referencing the same chair. Which is the real chair? Say, well, I don't think if just a knee-jerk reaction to what a chair is, it needs to be functional on some level. So I think we could argue that this is the one chair right here, but they're all referencing the same chair. So three different chairs, so to speak, all referencing the same chair. But even this isn't a real chair because we're viewing it. If you're in the gallery, you can't really sit on it because then you get in trouble. So you're just seeing it essentially becomes something that is a non-functional chair. And if we're looking at it like we are right now through the magic of the internet, we're still just seeing an image of the chair. We're not seeing the actual thing. And Joseph Kosuth is using the object to generate kind of an internal discussion about the chair. What is the chair? Is there an element here that you could see being something having to do with the cave in Plato's allegory? Maybe this, because it's only two-dimensional and it's just a black and white photo. And you could very well see that, this could be like a silhouette reflecting on a cave wall. Because if you're in the cave and you're only seeing the images or the shadows, you're not going to be able to encounter this at all. But you could talk about this. Somebody could be describing the chair to you. And this kind of internal discussion is what Joseph Kosuth is generating. What does reality even mean? How are we related to reality? How are we encountering it? Why is it when we see an image like this, we instantly think to ourselves, yes, it's a chair, when it's not, it's just an image? Why, when we encounter something like this, we can see, oh, it's a documentation of a chair, or yeah, it's a chair. Well, no, it's not. It's just a flat 2D photo. And this, it's describing a chair, but how useful is that? If you need a chair to sit down on and somebody hands you a slip of paper that just has the description, that's really not going to help. Now, whether or not you accept that conceptual art is a valid art form, that is less important to me than the fact that we explore it. And some of the most successful things that we've done in this class have been when people have looked at the conceptual artwork as something that they think is a bunch of baloney, but they try to follow through with it anyway and try to build something that directly relates to what we are talking about in this class. And then they come up with something that really does make people think, because that's the whole point of the conceptual work, is to get people to start thinking about it. What is reality? What are the things that are really important? And you can look at I want you to explore this a little bit and look at the different things that Joseph Kosuth has made. And there are 14 different works that they have online. And some of the things are more helpful than others. I think this is a four-color sentence is one of the things that you have that you can see in your I'm sorry, I'm having a lot of brain fog today, but the four-color sentence is one of the things that you see in your quiz. And Joseph Kosuth, we have this one in three chairs thing, and that is the title of one of his pieces. But over the years, he made several. It was like one in four clocks, for example, or time, or he did it with different things, but he also had different displays set up. And you can go to Wikimedia and look up Joseph Kosuth, 1 and 3 chairs, and you'll see that people took photos over the years of several different re-examinations of this setup. And how he would do some of his work, and there were other artists that did something similar, is he would provide directions on how to set this up. And if somebody wanted to display it, they would have to get permission from him to use his his setup. And I think he also made certificates of authenticity so that the person would that the gallery could show could demonstrate that they had permission to do this. But you can find examples of several different kind of wood folding chairs that were used, and then the photo is always of that chair that's displayed, and sometimes it's a different publication that's used to do, as the definition of what a chair is. But the setup is always the same. You have the actual wooden folding chair in the middle, photo on one side, and definition on the other side. Well, if the artist doesn't have to have a hand in it, if he just gives you directions, is it still art? Well, and this I think is a really good opportunity to think about what makes the art. What gives you the permission to decide that something is your art? How much of a hand do you have to have in it? I don't know how many of you have worked with uh, a foundry, because foundries all the time will take other artists' work and cast them at the foundry, where the artist has, and I want everybody to watch this video, definitely watch that video, where the artist, they've created a model or a maquette that needs to be done. And the foundry has to follow the artist's directions. And when it's all done, the foundry gets credit for casting, but the artist gets credit for the actual sculpture. And there's other examples too. I think what's really interesting is when I hear people arguing against digital art. Well, the artist really didn't do anything. You were just playing on a screen. And I can kind of see where somebody could generate that kind of argument. But the fact is, if you're a digital artist, you're directly controlling what's going on. You're directly controlling what the digital environment is creating. And sometimes that control is going to be more or less loose. There are examples of artists like one of my favorite artists is Corey Archangel, and I don't think he's on here, but he was one of the first real digital artists explaining what digital art can mean. And what I love about Corey Archangel is he would do things where he would take old video game cartridges and reprogram them. And one of them is um, it's just a short video about Mario. He used a Mario Brothers cartridge to pre-program, and his reprogramming was just Mario kind of going through the stages of uh, losing his mind. And so you gradually see his mind deteriorate. And I'm pausing because I'm trying to see if I can find, let's see, Archangel. And I'll show you this really quick. But so he reprogrammed these different videos, and this is just I'm sorry, not videos. He reprogrammed the game cartridges. So you plug the game cartridges in, and instead of watching the game, this one just shows the different clouds, and this one uh, shows another part of the game, just looping over and over again. And he would do different things where um, he actually made a movie inside of the game cartridge. And what is he does different really fun things. This is a display that he did where he shows different aspects of those cartridges, different movies that he made from the game cartridge. And this is, you know, game cartridge from the ancient days when people played games on game cartridges instead of from discs and stuff. But some of the things that Corey Archangel has done is where he would just draw with paint tools. So And he made a series of high gloss paintings using just the digital art paint tools. Um, see if I can find that. And then he put them on canvas and put them into a high-end gallery in New York. And then you start asking the question, is that really real art? Because he's using these things that have existed before. He's not really making anything new. He's just generating stuff with um, digital paint guides or game cartridges. There was one thing he did where he had two email accounts talk to each other, and the second email account would respond with so and so is out of the office, and they'll be back in a week. And then when that hit the first email, that email account would send back and say, "I'm sorry, so and so is out of the office. They'll be back in a week. You can talk to them then." And they just kept talking back to each other, back and forth to each other, and the display is showing that on large computer screens as these two email addresses talk to each other with the automatic messages that we program in. And the reason why these kind of discussions are important is I think it helps to demonstrate that maybe the artwork comes with the ideas that we're generating. Not just the ideas that we as artists come up with, but the ideas that people are generating as they are looking at the art and are engaged by it. So as you go through the background artists for this particular module, think about each of the types of art that they do. What are they doing? And not just what is their process, but try to guess what are they thinking about as they're building this. And we are two of the main things we're going to be talking about are ready-mades and wrapping. And I think that Jean-Claude and Christo are really, really good at with this kind of idea. And I'm trying to get to their website so we can see some of the stuff that they do. We're going to click on artworks. We're going to click on realized projects. This is the kind of stuff that they do. They will wrap things. And this goes to one of the two elements of this conceptual processes module. Why bother wrapping stuff? Or why bother stacking stuff in the middle of something? Why bother covering things with plastic? Or why bother putting up these cloth gates where people's heads touch the cloth and they have to walk through it? Why wrap trees? Well, there's some really interesting things that are going on in this, and it ties directly into a little bit about conceptualism. When we see this, the natural tendency that human beings have is, and I don't know if it's evolved into us. I think more likely it's probably a product of our just shared human culture. When we see something that's covered, we want to see what's underneath. When we see something like this, we want to start finding out why are these things put there without any sort of context? Why is this bridge covered with cloth or plastic? Why are these islands surrounded with floating plastic? And a big part of it is cocooning is done to engage the monkey mind, the curious mind. The Prophet Muhammad referred to it as the monkey mind. But we want to find out what's underneath it. So think about that for just a second. Jean-Claude and Crystal knew this. They know that our propensity, our desire is to find out what's underneath or behind or the rationale. And so by doing things by applying things to the landscape that hides a portion of the landscape, by applying material that covers something or that brings awareness to it, that focuses attention to it because it seems so out of context. These umbrellas are so out of context. They're engaging our monkey mind. The first thing we start doing is asking ourselves, what's going on? The second thing that happens is we pay a lot more attention to the site that is covered or the site that has this non sequitur material installed. Yes, we're engaged with the umbrellas trying to find out what's going on, but what comes immediately after that, as we start engaging with asking why, is we are going out to this area. We are engaging in the landscape. We are looking at this closer. We are looking at the Reichstag. We start asking ourselves, why is it the Reichstag that was chosen to be wrapped with plastic? We're engaging in examining even closer the architectural silhouette. We're asking ourselves, what does the building mean? Why are these trees wrapped in plastic? Is it to hide them? Because it's not doing a very good job hiding it. Is it to preserve it? Because if these trees remain wrapped for very long, they're probably going to die. So what is it? Is it maybe they're asking us to ask ourselves questions about how effective are conservation efforts? Are there people that under the title, under the umbrella of conservation, are they actually destroying things? Or maybe it's to engage with the tree itself. Is it important that the tree is preserved? Is it important? Is it important how we go about preserving the trees? Is it important that we just engage with the tree itself? Is it important that we take off these coverings? All these questions are things that we start automatically asking ourselves when we see something like that, when we choose to engage with it. And I think all of those are really good questions on the part that of the artist doing engage our minds. And that part of the process where the artist is creating an environment for us to start asking ourselves all sorts of questions, that is what conceptualism comes down to. Because then the artist is engaging us actively in what's going on. Now, these kinds of things, the surrounded islands. What was really interesting about these is Jean-Claude and Christo wanted to kind of do this for some set of islands, and the people that actually lived here around these islands, these 11 islands, were very interested in it. They were having problems because a lot of manatees were getting killed and hurt by illegal engines. They were the people that lived in this area were really kind of hurting too because tourism was starting to drop down a bit and they were losing some of their income. And by engaging Jean-Claude and Krista to come out and wrap their islands, and they did this also with their surrounded islands, and there's also floating piers that they did as well. And I don't know if there's a photo of those, but both of those were done at the request of the people that lived in these areas to bring people there, to look at them, to be engaged with the islands, to get people employed. Because Jean-Claude and Crystal didn't do this, they directed other people to do this, and those people were paid to do it. So it brought employment to the area, and it also brought a dramatic increase of awareness of the plight of the manatee and the problem with littering and people using illegal motors. And as a direct result, the entire economy of the people that lived around these islands was revitalized for years. And it ended up resulting in the manatees actually uh, no longer needing the endangered animals designation. They're actually no longer in desperate danger of becoming extinct because of the attention brought to this as a side effect of the art. And I think that stuff like that is just absolutely fascinating. The running fence, read about this. It was really fascinating because they wanted to build a fence from one location across California down to the ocean. And this fence shows where it was legal for them to build the fence, the people's property lines, all that kind of stuff. And it's really interesting because when you see it from the air, you can see how engaged people are with property lines and different laws. And it becomes a record of law and privacy as opposed to just building a random fence. And there's other wrap things like they did they put windsocks by Navajo Canyon. They did, and it brought in a lot of tourism and stuff like that. They wrapped the coastline. and it really engaged people with the coastline and revitalized the area. A lot of really interesting stuff that they did, doing things with the cubic meter package. They were just demonstrating how big this volume is. And stuff like that, I think is just absolutely fascinating. So we are going to be wrapping something, and we're to calling that cocooning, and we're doing it to really engage, you as an artist finding a way to engage other people and engage their curiosity. And the other aspect of this is of the contemporary processes is the ready-made. And the ready-made object that I want you guys to be working on, and we'll talk more about this next week. But this is another example of Joseph Kosuth, 1 and 3 chairs. But the ready-made object becomes really important. Marcel Duchamp, um, he made several of these, and the most famous, of course, of these is the fountain, which is basically a urinal that he found in that he rescued from basically a garbage truck as an apartment complex was being renovated. He just got the urinal out, cleaned it up, wrote Armlet on it like it was some other artist. He put it on his back and displayed it as the fountain. And let's see if I can find a picture of that really quick. All right, yes, here we go. And this is what that looks like right here. And you can see he wrote Armut 1917. This, I believe, is the third ready-made. But what he was trying to do was not get out of creating art. He was specifically taking things, giving them a title to make you think about it. And these are objects that he said he only did about a dozen of them because they had to be something that he did not have a lot of emotional attachment to. But by displaying them in a way that they had not been seen before, by giving them a title to make people think about how the title could relate to the object, he was guiding people to see a new way of seeing or to discover a new way of seeing. And one of my favorite ones was a ready-made that he made called In Advance of the Broken Arm, which was a snow shovel that was just standing upright. Now I want to show you an example that somebody has made of this that really does a good job of demonstrating the kind of thought process behind this. This is the first one, and I know you guys are going to do more and better things. So let's see. I don't know if I shared this properly. I don't think I did. So I'm going to try to do that again. Okay, here we go. Now, what this person did, it's obviously a drinking cup. It's obvious. That's what it is. It's a water cup. That's all it is. And what this person did, though, is the assignment has you find an object and then uh, give it a title, talk about it in a different way, and photograph it in a way that it's not typically shown as. And the title is Water Tongue. And this person said they wanted to pull focus away from its utility and towards its physical form. And so they're trying to show it as an object set on a pedestal as a sculpture piece and giving it a different title to kind of shift the narrative away from what we typically expect. And this is basically what the sorry, I'm having a hard time finding all the tabs that I need to keep open. But this is how we are addressing this idea of the ready-made. This is a conceptual art piece, and it's conceptual because we are helping people to think about something differently. And I'm going to go back to the assignment and just kind of walk through this, and then I'll talk more about this and the cocoon next week. I'm sorry, there was a lot of pauses because for whatever reason, my computer is being sluggish today. Okay, so this is the conceptual and art piece that is you guys need to watch. I want you to rewatch Plato's Allegory of the Cave and the reference to the world of the ideal. And think about that. Think about Joseph Kossuth, that kind of thing. Then I want you to watch these two videos. This one right here is somebody talking about Marcel Duchamp's Readymades, but this one right here is really important to watch. This is Marcel Duchamp talking about his own Readymades, what his rationale is. And these are both really pretty short, but I need you to watch this. Pay attention to that. Because what you're going to be doing, and there's two parts to this, is one is you're going to be building a ready-made. The thing that makes this art is you're going to be photographing it in a different way than people expect to see it. So if it's a water bottle, you're not going to be photographing it with a model. You're going to be photographing it as its own thing. People have turned things upside down. They've done different color filters on the photo. Whatever it is, make sure that the photo is intentional. Now, this person, the example I showed you, they were trying to make it look like it belonged in an art exhibit. That's why it looks like it was photographed on a pedestal. If you want to make the thing stand out by itself, photograph it on an infinity screen. I don't want this set in your living room and photographed just on the floor in the living room. Everything about the photo needs to be intentional. And then you're going to write 3 paragraphs providing a new context for this object. Give it a unique title that makes people think. First paragraph, you're going to explain what the object is that's your ready-made, the function it serves, and a guess at its origins. Remember, a paragraph is not a single sentence. It's 3 to 5 sentences. And you need to be pretty clear about this. You're going to use AI to help lay this stuff out for you. That's fine, but it needs to be in your own words. In the second paragraph, you're going to present the new title, what you did to the object to give it the new meaning, to give it the new context. Is it upside down, on its side? Are you photographing it with filters, dramatic lighting, whatever? And you're explaining what you did to the object to give it the new meaning, the new context. And then the third paragraph is you are going to clarify the new context and justify how it is its own art piece, what makes it a ready-made. And you're going to explain its validity. So put this all together in one document with the photo of the object. Okay. And then the second part, and this part is in the next portion of the assignment, which if we click on this next, you'll see it right here. It's in the discussion. I clarify it in the discussion. But in this part, you're going to be posting your discussion. You're going to be posting a photo of your ready-made with the 3 paragraphs that you wrote. And then after other people post their stuff, you're going to write 25 words, framed in positive language, that references one of the 4 tools of artistic critique about each of 3 of your fellow students. So what I would like to see happen is start posting this now so that next week you can be responding to the posts. And then we'll talk more about this next week as well. And we'll also talk about the cocooning. But I want you to think about this. It's not going to take a long time, but the energy you put into this to rethink the context, to photograph it intentionally, that's going to go a long way in helping this to feel like a ready-made and a conceptual art piece. So that's what we need to do for this week, as you know, and do the paper mache as well. Paper mache should only take about maybe 2.5 to 4.5 hours total. And this ready-made, I'm thinking is not going to take an awful long time because it's basically finding something, photographing it, and then writing about the context. But again, this needs to be in your personal voice. It should not be written by AI. You can use AI to outline it for you, but it needs to be in your voice. And the more personal you can make this, the more you know about the history and stuff like this, I think it becomes more interesting. So post that, wait, and as you see more students post stuff, then you respond to 3 other people. All right. If you have any questions, email me, talk to me. We went through the color tiles, we talked about the paper mache, and we talked about conceptualism and this first of the 2 assignments for contemporary processes. Second assignment is cocooning. And I want you to look at each of those artists in the background thing. Watch all those videos, explore the websites, and see what you think about this. If you don't like it, if you don't think it's conceptualism is valid, that's fine. I That is not the part that concerns me. What concerns me is if you follow directions and give it a shot yourself, because I want you to try. All right. I don't expect, um, I'm not trying to be an evangelist for conceptual art, but if you think about it, at the base, everything you do is designed to impact your viewer. So all of us are conceptual artists on one way or another, on one level. I hope you guys have a wonderful week, a wonderful weekend. Again, feel free to ask me questions and get those resubmissions done as soon as you can so I can regrade them. Thank you, folks. I look forward to seeing you next week, and I hope you have a wonderful week and weekend.